Is it better? Oh yeah, much better. Thank you. So we're going to talk about command and control through webhooks, and that's going to be a big-eyed lemur edition talk. I don't know why it is, but I like lemurs for some reason. So the big words out of the way, what we're trying to accomplish here. We're talking about webhooks, but essentially, from the tactical standpoint, it's a red team and pen tester challenge, as Laurent was talking about, is when you're on site, if you're in a situation where you need to create command and control, it's always a challenge, especially in secure environments. And the problem of outbound communication is that we're going to try to solve a little bit. We're going to go over HTTP webhooks concept, and we're going to try to establish asynchronous one- or two-way communication with C2 command and control over webhooks. But from strategic standpoint, really what we're trying to do is meet the blue team at their map of the world. They are operating in a certain way, and all we have to do is just adapt and overcome, and we're going to try to do that. We're going to try to feed off the land and maximize the retooling capability on site. I was introduced, but essentially I have to say that my opinions are mine, nobody else's, and apparently Watson agrees with me, which is good. So enough about me. Meet Misha, the pen tester, real deal. He likes grasshoppers. He lives to eat them. He gets paid by grasshoppers, and that's all he really cares about. But really, Misha's day starts at 9 o'clock. You know, you plug in, you get an IP, hopefully. You go through the motions. Of course, you use responder. You know, you get a domain admin, and then for all intents and purposes, your job is done, and then all you have to do is just exfiltrate things and you know, go back to the hotel, eat some lunch, and you're done, right? Well, almost. And to Misha, lunch is very popular, so you know, he wants to get to his lunch as fast as possible. But before Misha can actually go to McDonald's and order his number 6 with grasshoppers on a meal, he has a job to do. You know, we're not going to concentrate on anything that he does internally before the exfiltration. We're going to talk about that specific topic here. So 9:30 in the morning, Misha has gotten the admin. Misha has probably gotten some of the data from a company and tries to get it out. Get to his C2 or whatever the case may be. He's not able to do that, right? He's frustrated. What does he do? Well, essentially, you know, he's got lots of options, right? You know, Kimberly says, "Ain't nobody got time for that," and you know, Misha likes that very much because Kimberly is really super cool. So egress filtering, right? It's easy for pen tester. There's so many things to do. There's really no challenge here until you get to the point where all your tunneling is watched over, your DNS, ICMP. You know, obviously you can shell out outside. You know, you can't get web-based shell, and you can't access the cloud drives. All right, so you're prepared for it, right? Because no one does the blanket egress filtering. You can get to your C2 through cloud-fronted domains. Cloud-fronted domains are the ones that are basically, you know, in a cloud and then, you know, on providers that are accessible, like AWS or whatnot. So a little doubt in Misha's mind, but, you know, nothing to worry about. This, right? You can get out. You know, some secure environments have, you know, configured it in such a way that you've got proxies. And domain fronting doesn't work for Misha because, you know, everybody knows you can get out to AWS from certain environments, so he's done, right? There is nothing he can do. Blue team says, not really. You know, you got no friends here. You're done, Misha. Go home, eat your lunch, or order number 6 if you can afford it. But most of all, just have a nice day. that's Misha, really frustrated at 10 o'clock, haven't been able to get out anywhere, and, grasshoppers are distant memory for Misha at this moment. He's losing his cool, he really can't reach his C2, but he actually needs to do that. So we're going to try to help him do this right here. He's sort of spaced out a little bit, he is not thinking straight, so what we're trying for him to do is to think outside the box. What does that even mean? Well, assess the situation, look around you. What is available? What can you use being in this specific situation, in this specific company? What can you do? And you are on developer network. There are developers out there. For example, Misha hears that they're pushing some code here and there. They're using some things called webhooks. Misha doesn't know what webhooks are, so let's take a look at this, right? What those webhooks are before we move on further. So webhooks. So the old way that we check for request, we send the request to a web server and we check for a response. We say, every 5 seconds we're going to go out and say, hey, are you done finishing, doing what we're tasked you to do, the web server? And then we keep looping until we get the response. So naturally, web server is not really happy with us. So in some time we'll get the response, and then server is okay until the next time we start asking him questions, stupid questions, really. So the web server says, hey, you know what, stop asking me. Why don't I tell you when I'm done processing your request? This is what the new way of doing webhooks really is. You submit a request for processing, and when the processing is complete, web server just says, okay, well, give me the link to post the response back to you. Well, here's the link. When you're done, post it back to me. No problem. Notify me when you're done, and that way I'm going to be sleeping and you're going to be working, and then you're going to notify me when you're done. Most importantly, you're going to do this asynchronously, so no more aggravated servers, and you're happy. So what do we do? The link that we post in the webhook is just an action and a method, or some variation of the same. And then on the client, we'll listen to, for that sort of request, or response rather, from the server, and we have a callback that has, we launched in the background to listen for it. So who uses webhooks? It's nice, and therefore the developers are using them, right? Continuous integration. Heroku just yesterday came out with a new CI service for themselves. GitHub, Slack, any notification services like PagerDuty, Datadog, and internal teams as well. So hey, Misha is excited. He likes to learn about new things. Webhooks seem to be cool, and Misha being Misha, he still likes grasshoppers, right, for some reason. So he thinks about lunch all the time. And so, things started to kind of click a little bit, right, with our help. So we start looking at what can we do with these webhooks while we're on the inside. There are developer sites. They're using webhooks. Can we use this technology or this trick for C2 contact, right? Yes, right. And so Misha is a little bit more excited here. He's got his thought process started, and so we're talking about C2 broker, right? C2 is somewhere on the other side of the planet. How do we broker this information? So the traits of broker. C2 broker is, it needs to be public, right? Because you need to get out to a site that is visible, and then that site needs to post somewhere else that is also public. It needs to see a decent set of webhook functionality, so we can be a little bit more flexible. And most importantly for the red teams is that we have to blend into the traffic, right? Things are being watched. So whatever we can do to maximize our chances to get out safely, that's what we're going to do. And so in this case, specific case with proxy content management in the middle, we want to be on a good behavior with proxies. And so, obviously Misha likes to be, cool. So he's going to try to do that a little bit here. Again, good candidates for C2 broker. How about CI services? How about back to GitHub, Slack, and all the other ones? They're public, they're visible, they have good API, and so you can try, right? So you're in scenarios where you're not allowed to connect outbound with web content proxies. We've established that. You lost the tools on the inside. You need to bring them in. How do you do that? That may be one of your scenarios to use webhooks to do that. Or if you're a little bit more advanced in this regard, then you want to switch the direction of your C2 and have the C2 on the inside. When you connect from the outside, you can also do that. So let's build your tool to get you going, Misha, right? So really nice intermediate C2 broker is a cat site of some sort, and Misha does not really like cats, and actually Misha doesn't like cats with 8 legs either. But if Misha can take advantage of that site, then he'll be happy. Right. So let's go ahead and evaluate a cat site. A cat site is super popular, developer friendly. Obviously, everybody uses it. Has really awesome webhook API and is allowed, right? Companies do allow traffic to GitHub, right? GitHub is specifically used for development, for DevOps, but also for infrastructure. So essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to use GitHub to create a broker for our C2. So the task is going to be for Misha to send a request to GitHub over webhook. The webhook will reach out to the C2 that Misha has on the other side of the planet, right? And the C2 will respond through GitHub back into the presence that Misha has on the inside of the company. The way it sort of works with webhooks is just that you store some notification on a GitHub. There is a link that wakes up a agent on the other side, and then you circle back. In this case, you still pull in some of the results, but this is done manually because you know what you've tried to ask for, and so you can ask for a response. GitHub is easy to set up. It's helping us from the red team perspective to set up to 20 webhooks. So thinking ahead, you have a lot of functionality here. GitHub is super REST friendly, JSON payloads, everything is cool, set up for us. So we're going to go ahead and choose what we are listening for. And what we're going to be listening for are the issues and issue comments on the other side. And so also GitHub is trying to secure developer communication, storage, and all that good stuff. So we're going to ride that wave, right? We're going to use GitHub security to obscure our communication with RC2 and our client. So this is Octahook. It's a little shell that allows you to encode all these things that we talked about to use the client, use the server, and proxy everything through issues and GitHub communication to the C2. So essentially, from the blue team perspective, all you're seeing is traffic to GitHub, traffic from GitHub, right? It's all encrypted, obviously, because GitHub makes it easier for us. We just did ls-l on our C2, which resides somewhere in Eastern Europe, maybe. Right, so this concept is asynchronous. We execute a command on the server on the C2, and then we manually poll the issue for completion. Right, we send the status and say, "Hey, am I done? Am I done? Am I done?" We view the issue number 612, and 612 has a response for us, which is nice, right? It's a little shell here. So what is the delivery mechanism in this particular response? every agent connecting to the C2 has the identifier, and it's a straight YAML over JSON to post the requests and get the responses out. You use the Git app tokens to authenticate yourself with GitHub, and it basically goes from there. You can use app token. You have some limit things that you need to take care of with the GitHub as far as throttling counters and posting limit, but for the most part, it's all extensible here. And on the issue side, this is what you see on the GitHub, right? It's the various types of requests that your Octahook supports. You can do operating system execution. You can do content put, which we're going to look at a little bit later. So, and obviously the C2 on the other side, it says, yep, the issue is resolved. Go ahead and look at your responses. So essentially, it's like a ticket, right? It's a ticket from your C2 to GitHub to close the issue and notify your agent on the inside to come back and check for it. If you've got large payloads, you can split them across multiple comments on the same issue. So it's very convenient. This is how the request looks like. You essentially, you can extend it if you want, but in the proof of concept, this is just ls, and the type of execution is the process. More configuration, but really what needs to happen here is that now if we're using webhooks over GitHub, for example, in this case, you can assume a role. You can be a client and a server on each side of the things, right? So you can be listening to the way GitHub works by sending responses through webhook is that it's a broadcast, right? So if you created 2 webhooks, then both of the webhooks are going to get the JSON payload, right? And so you can play on this by saying, hey, well, if I can listen to both, then I can be a server and a client, which makes it much easier for us because we can extend it even further. You can do uploads through Git. Obviously, for lost tools, if Misha cannot get to his in-packet library, it's not on the customer side. You're working from a restricted Citrix environment. You can pretty much reverse upload the library and use it here. And every agent that hooks up through GitHub will have a directory with identifier, and this is where you place the content in. So again, the roles, you can be client side and server side on either side of the execution. The C2 can be a client, your agent can be a client, 2 threads, command execution, and the web server itself that listens for the payload. Yeah, so, bringing more tools on the inside is exactly the opposite of executing something on your C2, which makes it easier for you to bypass the proxy, and because GitHub is really allowed. This is a little demo of how you would put a content from C2 if you forgot to brought your toolkit back into the organization, right? You touch a file, or in this case, you will probably have a depot files on your C2, and then you would execute a put through Git to the local thing, and then you can pull it down by download. But it's still sort of not real time, right? You need to ask whether your upload has completed or whatnot. So it's a little not automated enough. Let's see what we can do, right, to solve this issue. Again, coming back to what really webhooks are, is just a broadcast. And if we use GitHub as a central repository or broker of C2, then we can achieve real-time communication, right? And so essentially what we do, we assign 2 webhooks, one that goes to the C2 server, the other webhook that goes to the client, to the agent that resides in the company. So essentially by me executing ls-l on the C2, the request and the response is going to be coming in both ways. So I can have, I can wake up both sides at the same time by that broadcast, and those sides that are client will listen for a response. The side that is a server is going to listen for a request. And so that makes it a little bit easier for us to achieve real-time proxying via GitHub by creating just two endpoints. It could be different IPs, it could be different resources on the same server if you want to, but that's basically what you could do. So let's see how that's done. So we put, we turn on real-time communication, we execute in ls-l outside, and we get a response back. No polling, nor asking for view an issue for response, and so that's basically the real-time shell that you can get from C2 back into your environment. You can reverse it, right? So you can say, hey, Misha, it's 12:30, I want to go to lunch. I'm going to change the roles, flip the roles. I'm going to make my agent on the inside a C2, and I'm going to make a client on my, point of presence across the world, and that's how I would operate for the next day until I get what I need from this company. So really nice, right? A good day worth of work. Misha's happy. Took him a few hours to code it in. But then, obviously Misha doesn't like to be alone. He likes to share things with a friend. And that may also be possible because right now you can extend, this is a proof of concept for Git, right? But essentially if we know that continuous integration tools exist through various sites that are more than likely right now are allowed, right? Like Heroku maybe, Slack is a very popular thing. So you can write a plugin for how you want to communicate, file puts and execution of command between the two. Because you have, every agent has its own configuration and ID, you can create a logic where you say, I'm only listening for ID, XYZ coming from this particular machine. So you can have a swarm capability where you are broadcasting requests and getting responses from where you need to be. So you can bring in a friend, right, a different agent that would be taking over your C2 capability, and you can hand it off. You can change the role and you can hand it off to another guy. So so simultaneous execution on multiple agents may be possible. Flipping C2 direction may be possible. Mitigation. Webhooks are here to stay. That's how developers will go forward with this, right? That's easy. It solves a lot of good issues for them, and the sites that would implement that, they're very popular and high ranking on the content proxy will still exist. Again, if you're managing your systems well, why not just restrict the specific developer to go to a specific site that they need to on a GitHub, like a repository, even from this specific machine. Do not open up just blanket communication to GitHub, because that's what's going to happen here. You can take a hard look at why you need to use GitHub. Do you want to have a local repository of things that you need local developers to use or infrastructure team to use? Do you really need to go out to the social coding sites and do that? And if you're into deep behavior inspection, then there is no reason why you would need to have 612 issues, right, opened up on 0 line of comments or code in GitHub, right? That's a telltale sign of this particular, for example, example of communication, right? So see what your developers are doing, why they're doing it, and restrict them accordingly. And from the red team, we're going to keep writing the social coding until this sort of division happens, because possibilities are endless with meeting software right now. It's all going to be widespread, and so essentially it's one of the things that can be done. And if you have any questions, let me know.